Director, Mr. Alan Miguel, is here with us, and we say welcome because next week, Wednesday, a very important day on your calendar. I know there are plans ahead and obviously plans after the said day, and it's more than just a day, but it's a day where you recognize the hard work you and your team you all are doing, and not only here in Trinidad, but I would imagine across the entire globe, because this is a regional and global issue. So again, in that regard, welcome. And I want to find out, what are the plans? What are the plans in place for this World Day Against Trafficking in Persons?
Good morning, GW. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Well, this year, the Counter Trafficking Unit, with the assistance, of course, of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Homeland Security and the Minister himself, we are planning to have a play, more improvised, spoken word, using Mr. Darren Sandy. And that is just one of the small things that we would be doing on the day itself, on the 30th of July. But even before that, we continue to do some public awareness and sensitizations, and even what we're doing this morning in this Media Bliss. I'm trying to inform Trinidad and Tobago about trafficking in persons. Yeah,
let me bring Director Mr. Miguel in the conversation. Are we making inroads? Are we making strides in terms of putting a spike in the criminal enterprise that conduct this kind of business?
A wholehearted yes.
Thank you.
Because what we have seen is that from the inception, when the deputy and we took the mantle of the Counter Trafficking Unit, at that time we were sitting at a Tier 2 watch list. That means that our activities in relation to addressing this whole idea of trafficking in persons is assessed not by us, but by the United States Department of State. They do a worldwide check of all countries who fall under the United Nations Protocol for suppressing trafficking and prosecuting trafficking, especially amongst women and girls. They do the assessment, and they have so far assessed us. They have elevated from the Tier 2 watch list to Tier 2. And I was told recently that we are going to continue on the Tier 2. So it means then that we are progressing. One of the metrics that they use to determine whether it is you are progressing or not is whether you have had a conviction. So we have gone past one conviction. We are at 2 convictions now, and we are looking we are on a good trajectory in terms of improving our detection, prosecution, and conviction.
Ms. Marshall, let me ask, what conditions must be in place for someone to know that, you know what, this is wrong, something is not correct here? What are the conditions that will constitute somebody being trafficked or being held against their will in that regard?
So the legal framework says to us that we must be able to determine act, means, and purpose. So an act, so the investigators who are so attached, and let me say good morning to the authorized officers of the Counter Trafficking Unit this morning, they are given the mandate to provide the evidence that there was an act, whether there was a recruitment, transport, transfer, harboring of an individual. And means, if the means was via deception, coercion, or an abuse of, and that keyword, vulnerability. And then, of course, for what purpose? Whether the purpose was sexual, labor, domestic servitude, and, well, in other parts of the globe, organ harvesting. So those are the 3 components that must be met in relation to when we look at the legal framework. When we look at our indicators for somebody who is for our citizenry, we often tell them, observe little telltale signs in terms of the movement of persons in bulk, whether or not they could see somebody is of control of them, whether or not they're inside during the day, but then you see a vehicle come to pick them up in the night. Several little things that will give you, you know what they said, raise the hair behind your neck syndrome? Yeah. So we want you all to be able to indicate to us if you see anything, because we will, of course, progress it. But these are the mantles that the investigators have to find before they can perfect an investigation in trafficking.
Director Miguel, I want you to start, and obviously your colleague could continue. As it pertains to those who are rescued, what are some of the steps post-rescue and more so that reintegration process back into society for victims?
Yeah, quite often, sometimes that rescue comes by way of an alert that may emanate from Venezuela.
Oh, serious?
Maybe a family member, somebody who is trafficked, find a phone or get access to a phone, and they drop a location back to the people in Venezuela. Quite often, the Venezuelan officials, they contact us, and we immediately have to go to that coordinate and find that person and perhaps rescue them. And that is the beginning of our work, really. Because in trafficking, when you're dealing with trafficking in persons, there are two aspects of it. One is that you want to prosecute and bring down, disrupt and dismantle the networks, and then you have to care for the victims and you have to care for them in a particular way, in a trauma-informed manner. Because that person was snatched out of their comfort zone, wherever they were, taken on a boat and disappeared into Trinidad and Tobago, and next thing you have a debt. Imagine a teenager, you tell them they have a debt of 30,000. You don't need much imagination to finish that side of the story. So they have to go to work and so on. But when we have them, we have to make sure they are medically fit, medically sound, psychosocial. We have victim care. We have a number of things that the law mandates us to do. We must house, we must have shelters, appropriate shelters for them. And in the perhaps the most difficult aspect of that is the lag time between an arrest, prosecution, and final determination before the court. What type of life is that victim going to live in the meantime? So we think about technical and vocational studies. We teach them nail tech, beautician courses, and so on to make their lives while they're here, as comfortable and as humane as possible. Well, and finally, some of them, the adults and so on, they're given minister's permits so they can integrate into the society, they can work into the society. But you could appreciate the difficulty of a person who has suffered such trauma, the fear that they may have. We spoke about that earlier, the fear that they may have just being in society.
And I mean, you would have mentioned also, Ms. Dane, that besides those who would have been on the part of a syndicate or organized criminal enterprise that brought them, if indeed they had to interact with people during that nightmare, to even see that person, let's say customers or somebody who would have been exploiting them in a particular way, that
customers.
in itself.
That's a unique word to use.
Well, yeah.
Customers.
Well, I mean, people will be people who will...
Clients, dons.
That kind of thing, right?
Yes.
I would imagine that in itself will be a bit traumatic. So is there any kind of reservation or any facility for someone to totally leave the space?
So this directorate, very early, we were having discussions with UNHCR and the Canadian Embassy in relation to resettlement of possible victims. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago's very first trafficking victim in terms of conviction, she herself was able to resettle into the UK, right? What we try to do now, JW, is, of course, through the Victim and Witness Support Unit and other agencies who assist us with the psychosocial, we try very much to assist them in that regard. Now, at this particular point in time, the Counter Trafficking Unit has mostly Venezuelan national women who are victims, and they opt more than likely to return to their home country. So even in that process, we, of course, transfer that information to the authorities across there so that they can continue with their psychosocial needs. But it is actually and will always be up to the survivor, the choice that they want to make, yes.
Well, again, a very important conversation, and obviously, as you all mentioned, dents are being made, the work is being done, and I know that, as you said, next week, we'd use drama and theater to paint this story.
Yes.
You think the average citizen, we are getting a deeper understanding as to this particular issue? You think people, because I know there were folks for a long time denied this, denied this even took place, There was a lot of denial, a lot of people put their head in the sand concerning this talking point.
Yeah, indeed. We have embarked on wide-ranging sensitization programs. I mean, we went to Tobago, to the hoteliers, the boat people, and, we do schools, we do, so it is part of our mandate under the law to warn the public that this exists out here.
Yeah.
And I think that we're doing a fantastic job. Even some of our institutions, like the judiciary, we have had engagements with them to let them know exactly what it means to really prosecute or to deal with trafficking in persons. And so I think that the public now is starting to become aware.
Yeah.
Quite often it is not uncommon for people to say that they never knew that this was happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. But now I don't think that is an excuse anymore, because we are doing quite a fantastic job in terms of sensitizing the public as to the dangers that exist.
That's why these conversations are so important. I think there is a level of awareness now, and I think people are also being extra mindful. I've always said intelligence is a strong currency when it comes to crime fighting, and I think, as you rightfully said, if you're in an area and you're seeing something strange, you need to get in touch with the authorities. And sometimes that little tip does break down a whole syndicate, you know. Sometimes these things are being done in a quiet, people hiding in the open with this kind of behavior.
In plain sight. And I just want to warn Trinidad and Tobago, for every operation that you see Counter Trafficking Unit put out there, we are putting it out there so that you are able to understand and see that it is real. And for every operation, I kid you not, we will find a child. We will find a child subjected to the exploitation. So I would want you all to continue to say something. Our hotline is 800-4288. I need to get that there. 800-4288. 800-4CTU. We are also on Instagram, Counter Trafficking Unit TT. And of course, you can email us on countertraffickingunit@mns.gov.tt.
Well, Dean Marie Marshall, of course, Alan, Miguel, I want to thank you all for being here, for the great work. Let's keep the conversation going so that, you know, at least we could inform the country as to what's being done. Yes, we know next week, Wednesday, is going to be a day of remembrance and knowledge and awareness, but we have to keep the conversation going beyond the 30th. So let's keep in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're blue.
We're blue. Blue's the color. All right. Well, I mean, you see what's going on inside here, right?